Confederate forces who've changed some of the material. This thing has been doctored, and they've claimed that these people have been black Confederates. It's been really bandied about, this particular photo here. Here's a photo here of the famed 22nd Regiment at Petersburg on June 15, 1864. This is them going against the forces here. And this is from the collection of Alexander McCook Craighead, a very famous military collection of this painting that shows this particular June 5th attack. Look, let me tell you about the 22nd also. This regiment here, when Lincoln got shot, they had the assignment to help track down Booth. I mean, they were kicking doors open in Maryland. They marched in Lincoln's funeral. And they were selected to march in that funeral because they're one of the most elite groups in the United States. They're one of the most elite regiments. Now, another regiment, which was, I have up here, hitting some of the highlights here. April the 9th, there was a celebration in New York. They were celebrating the abolition of slavery in D.C., which happened April the 16th, 1862, before the war was over, before the Emancipation Proclamation, before the 13th Amendment. That also happened with Maryland. Maryland abolished slavery in 1864. So they're having this commemoration on April the 9th, 1864, and you can see who the music is being supplied by. The famed Brigade Band No. 2 of Camp William Penn. This was an outstanding group of musicians. I'll just tell you about one group of brothers, the Ray brothers, R-A-Y, in that brigade band. These guys, they're from Jersey. They were from Jersey, Morristown, New Jersey, and all of them outstanding musicians, about 4 of them. And so after the war, I was tracking one of them down, George, and I find him as a janitor in New York at the New York Music Conservatory. He's the janitor. He's married to an Irish woman, and he has the keys to the place. So, when we do history, we have to kind of, imagine how things would have went, Now here he is with these keys at night. Outstanding musician. I'm sure he had somebody coming in there taking some lessons, And so, talk about agency and making things work. I mean, and you see he's around people. This guy is called Dvorak. He's one of the most famous violinists in the world. All these people are there, internationally known musicians, and here he is. He's sweeping the floor, and he probably is as astute as these other people, of course. And so but at this event here in New York, you could see that Camp William Penn's brand was strong. And look who's on the dais. Look who's up there on the podium here. Major General Benjamin Butler, who invented the term contraband. Colonel Wagner, commander of Camp William Penn. And then, of course, Martin Delaney and Reverend Henry Highland Garnett. I mean, that's, it doesn't get any more, for me, at that point, any more revolutionary than Henry Highland Garnett. Okay? And so, that's the kind of strength that they had. Now, trying to have a conversation here. Work with me for a minute. 20 years ago, 20 years, 1997. 1997, a 93-year-old woman died, and Carolyn Gumby was not her name, however. Because the woman that I'm thinking about here, the woman that passed, is Ida Bowen and it is not her. It is this woman here, Catherine Lomax, who died in November 1997 at 93 years old. When she passed away, she left a heck of a, oh, excuse me. When she passed away, she left a very rich legacy, and it relates like this. Her mother, now let's walk it back a minute. This is her burying her mother. Her mother was Ida J. Bowen. They lived in South Philadelphia. You can see where she passes away. She passed away on, April the 23rd, 1945. All right? And she was the mother of Catherine. Now, Ida J. Bowen, who was she? Well, Ida J. Bowen nee Gumby. Her father was Jeremiah Gumby, and her mother was Caroline Gumby, and I just showed you her death certificate. She was born in the same place my father was, Laurel, Delaware. Interesting thing, name of father, can't get. Birthplace, can't get. Maiden name of mother, can't get. All right, a lot of those things, you know, didn't know those things. And buried Mount Peace Cemetery, Camden County, which is in Lawnside. Mount Peace Cemetery is in Lawnside. Her and her husband were buried in Lawnside. What does this mean for us? What does this mean for us? Let's take a look. Well, it turns out that Catherine Lomax's grandfather had been enslaved in Delaware. There's about 150 people that come out of Delaware to Camp William Penn who were enslaved up until the day they enlisted in the Army. In fact, this is his manumission papers, and it tells us that Jeremiah Gumby enlisted in the military, and that I, William Huffington Cannon of Sussex County, hereby in consideration of said enlistment, manument, he sets this man free. Why? He's going to get $300. All right? And so it's worth it. Now, the reason I pulled this up, one is to just demonstrate how those of us still walking around today, there are plenty of us walking around today with those direct connections to the past. And not only that, we have Philadelphia, where they're living, Delaware, where they originated, and then, of course, living in Jersey. It ties that tri-state area in as almost being like one place. People are moving around according to life circumstances. Anyway, so when he enlists, he gets emancipated, and that happens he's in the 22nd Regiment, right? He's in Company D, the 22nd Regiment, ultimately. So it's the 12th day of January, 1864. What else can we see? Well, in 1856, he had been, appraised for his value. Extract of the appraisement: for the goods and chattels of Daniel Cannon. All right? He died as appraised by the appraisers, and these names the appraisers, and they were taken, and so they're going to appraise this young man. And so, Jeremiah Gumby, Negro, age 12 years old, appraised for $450. Noah, Luther, and Jacob, well, Noah, $450, but Luther and Jacob, $425 apiece. But you know what? I think that's because they had tuberculosis. And because those two Let me see if we got anything else on. Let's see. Where he names these here, he names and he says that, oh, excuse me. Okay. He names them here, Jeremiah Gumby. Then he gives Cannon, Noah J. Cannon, Luther Redding, and Jacob Cannon. Oh, that's supposed to be Redding too. Anyway, aged respectively 12, 11, 14, and 13. These are, Cannon supplies these records to prove that he owns these people. He's trying to get this $300, so he's offering up all this data. Right? Okay, and then, oh, I threw that in there because I was going to talk about how things were going at Camp William Penn. The officers had porches to sit on, but the enlisted men didn't, so they would come around and sit on the officers' porch. So they had to put out these rules, you know, hey man, y'all got to stop sitting on our porch, you know. And so, as you can see, there's a lot going on about that. There's a whole conversation we could have about that. The conditions at Camp William Penn were such that there was also a lot of disease because of the closeness. You know, this is a period here we didn't know about microscopic germs at this time, or how a lot of diseases were transmitted. So measles, cholera, typhoid, fever, a lot of these, tuberculosis, a lot of these diseases. The Reddings, that is Jacob and Luther Redding, both died at Camp William Penn from tuberculosis. And then, this is interesting, they say that they were buried in Lebanon Cemetery. They even had the plot and all of that. But it turns out many of these bodies were being taken to these medical facilities. Unbeknownst, you know, they said they buried somebody, they would take them to experiment on these, you know, oh, yeah, we need a cadaver. You know, so that's what was happening now. There was something recent about that came out, as a matter of fact. Okay, now we're getting to another part of this story. And that is, we're going to start talking a little bit about the women now. And not just the women, but also the men as far as one part of this. But this is a story that is very important as well. This is a streetcar. This is the streetcars that existed at that time. And the law read that if you were black, you had to stand here or here. You could not sit inside that car, or you could be on the back. Especially if the passengers would object. So, you see where Camp William Penn is located in terms of the remoteness of its location. The only way to get there was by rail. And so, and part of that ride involved riding the streetcars. And so, many women and men, Frederick Douglass even, Robert Smalls came to town one time, and his ship was at the Navy Yard. He couldn't even catch a streetcar to go see it. They wouldn't let him on. And they said, well, you know who this is? You know, I don't make no difference. You know, he gave the N-word. That's what he is to us, you know. And he couldn't even go see his ship that he had certainly won for the Union. We all know that story about Robert Smalls and the planter ship that he acquired for the Union Army. You know, going out to Camp William Penn, oftentimes, or to even the hospitals. If I had showed that entire military map of the city, you would have seen it all up and down the Schuylkill River on both sides, where these tent cities, well, the hospital cities. It was just, you know, 600,000 people died in that war. 600,000, more than all the other wars in the United States combined.
Yes.
All right? You're talking about over 1 million wounded. Only 30 million people live here. Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that resonate. Anyway, these folks are being abused. They're being thrown off the trains. I could, anyway, I could read a passage from this book by this woman, and her name is Geisberg. It's written a nice book about women on the northern home front during the Civil War. She has a chapter in there about the role of women in dealing with the streetcar situation, because this was a national, by the way, folks, you know, I was telling some kids the other day, and some educators as well. Segregation laws began in the North. You know, there was no need to have segregation laws in the South during slavery, because the role that they played, that is to subjugate people psychologically, it was unnecessary. If you got a piece of paper owning somebody, you don't need a sign.
That's right.
You don't need a sign when you think somebody might think they're free.
Right.
All right? So you're going to remind them, no, you ain't. You know? So they began in the North.
That's right.
And the campaign to end streetcar segregation began in the North. Because these people were not trying to buy this, and man, it wasn't just Philadelphia. California. We had a woman named, oh geez, her name escapes me in a minute, who, it'll come to me in a second. She sues the streetcar company in San Francisco, wins $500.